الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد المرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. This is our fifth session where we are looking at the book من مشكلات الشباب by Sheikh Muhammad Ustadh Ariff Olla, where he is talking about the problems and the challenges that the youth face in the world that we live in today. And in the previous sessions we have looked at what he had to say about the practicing youth, the person who is upright on his religion, upon Iman. And we have said this before, and we can repeat, this is not just about the youth, it's about adults, it's about everyone. If you're looking for a spouse, he is talking about this here. If you're looking for friendship, if you're looking for an employer or an employee, these are signs here for us to understand certain characteristics so that we can categorize people into practicing, non-practicing, and the third category we will look at inshallah hopefully next week or maybe the week after, those people who are in between, those people who are confused. So he says about those who are practicing, these young people are the pride of this ummah and the symbol of its life, meaning that Islam will continue, its prosperity and its religion. They are upholding the Sharia. And this is very important. And the very fact that you are practicing youth, it doesn't just benefit yourself, but it benefits the Muslim Ummah. The Ummah is made up of individuals. And when you practice the religion, not only are you defending the Sharia for yourself, but you're defending the Ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They are those whom we hope that Allah will use to repair the Muslims' damaged condition and illuminate the way for the followers of the right path. They are those who shall attain the bliss of this world and the next, inshaAllah. These are the practicing youth. Now he talks about those youth who are not practicing. He actually calls them the corrupt youth, those who have been corrupted in their fitrah. And everything that we've talked about, the practicing youth, really, he says, is the opposite. But we'll look at the description that what he is saying here. So he says, a non-practicing youth. Now this could be inside Islam, it could be outside of Islam. It could be somebody who calls himself a Muslim. It could be somebody who calls himself no religion. He says, فَشَابٌ مُنْحَرِفٌ فِي أَقِيدَتِهِ مُتَهَوٍ فِي سُلُوكِهِ. He is deviated in his aqidah, and as a result, he has become deviated in his behaviorisms, in the things that he does, in the things that he wants to do, in the way he speaks, his interactions with people. He is saying here, مُنْحَرِفٌ فِي أَقِيدَتِهِ. It starts off with the lack of iman, a lack of sound aqidah. مَغْرُورٌ بِنَفْسِهِ. He is deluded by himself. He himself is deluding himself. He has too much trust in himself. مَغْمُورٌ فِي رَذَائِلِهِ. And he is stuck in his vices, with his addictions, with his desires. The way he spends his time with his aspirations, he's stuck. He has nowhere to move. لا يقبل الحق من غيره. He doesn't want to seek the truth, let alone accept it from anyone else. He is not prepared to accept anything. كأنما خلق للدنيا وخلقت الدنيا له وحده. It is as if this person has been created for the dunya, and that the whole dunya has been created for him alone. The youth who has become misguided, we're talking about the youth, we're talking about people really, we're talking about the soul, we're talking about the ruh. Our Messenger of Allah ﷺ said, كُلُّ مَوْلُودٍ يُولِدَ الْفِطْرَةِ. Every single one of us is born upon the fitrah. This is because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala أحسن الخالقين is the best of creation. He will not create a creation which is deviated. The Shaykh is saying here, this person's soul, it doesn't matter how old he is, could be as young as 4 now, where they say that, I don't believe in God, I think I'm in the wrong body, and all these different things. He is saying here that the soul is being corrupted, the fitrah. And in the rest of the hadith that we were just mentioned, the Messenger of Allah فَإِنَّمَا أَبَوَاهُ يَهْوِدَانِ وَنَصْرَانِ وَيَجُسَانِ. They corrupt his aqidah, the parents. So the Shaykh is saying here, once the fitrah has been corrupted, كَأَنَّمَا خُلِقَ لِلدُّنْيَا, he walks in this life, this dunya, as if he is being created to stay here. And you can see the corruption in this. Adam only was sent here because of a sin. This is really a prison if you think of it. Otherwise Adam alayhi salam with his progeny would have been in Jannah. But because of that sin, as a punishment, قُلْنَا اهْبِطُوا مِنْهَا جَمِيعًا, you and shaitan, get out of here. وَلَكُمْ فِي الْأَرْضِ مُسْتَقَرٌّ وَمَتَاعٌ إِلَىٰ حِينٍ. It's a prison with a person that hates you. He's got an army, and he's not going to stop. He wants to get into your head. He won't even let you sleep. He'll infiltrate your visions as you sleep. This person with his fitrah being corrupted, كَأَنَّمَا أَخُلِكَ لِلدُّنْيَا, he is fallen. He is fallen to the plots of shaitan. He walks on this dunya as if he has been created to stay here, when in actual fact it is a prison. So he eats what he wants, he drinks what he wants, he looks at what he wants, he takes what he wants. And there are no restrictions. There are no morals, there is no respect. وَخُلِقَتِ الدُّنْيَا لَهُ وَحْدَهُ. This is because he has this mindset that the dunya has been created for him. And this is something that is being pumped into our youth, into every single one of us in society, where they are saying that you are free to do whatever you want. You are free to do whatever you want, to believe in what you want, to wear what you want, to love who you want, to eat what you want, to drink what you want, to own what you want. Nobody can stop you. And they call this civilization. They call this being as part of a new civilized society. And this is exactly what the Shaykh is saying here. كَأَنَّمَا خُلِقَ لِلدُّنْيَا. Part of this new mindset that we have all been told that we should have in our aqidah creates the idea that there is no halal and haram anymore, and you can take from the dunya whatever you want. Keep Islam in the masjid, keep Islam on your name tag, but engage in whatever displeases Allah. Why? Because you are free to do what you want. Nobody can stop you. Because وَخُلِقَ الدُّنْيَا لَهُ وَحْدَهُ, because that person feels that the dunya has been created for him. And these are from the plots of shaitan. And as a result, the Shaykh is saying here, they do not refrain from falsehood. They can only be described as being selfish, stubborn, and his heart won't yield to the truth. And as a result, obligations are lost and relationships are cut. Shabun fawdawi, a young man, a human being who is in chaos. His fitrah is in chaos. This could be a 6-year-old, it could be a 60-year-old. Shabun fawdawi. فاقد الاتزان في تكفيره. فاقد الاتزان في تفكيره. He has no balance in the way he thinks. معجب برأيه. He thinks he knows it all. He thinks that his opinion is always correct. كأنما يجري الحق على لسانه. As if divine truth comes off his tongue. فهو عند نفسه معصوم من الزلل. And his own perception of himself is that he feels that he is infallible and he can never do anything wrong. As a result, such people's lives, they have deviated from the Sirat al-Mustaqim, and they end up imitating others from different aqidas or different societies. Because if you don't have an identity, and if you don't have a religion, if you don't have an aqidah, and if you don't have a sharia, you are not on the Sirat al-Mustaqim, which is your aqidah and your sharia, but also practically, how will you live your life? except through imitation. Their wrong ways are portrayed to them as good, and as a result, they fall amongst from being the losers. This is what the Shaykh had to say when it comes to the youth that is misguided. And the next section, inshallah, next week we will look at the one who is confused between haqq and batil, the one who has some good and he has some mistakes also, but that's because he is confused. If you want, for the rest of today's session, it's been about 10-15 minutes, but there is a similar chapter like this from Ibn al-Qayyim's book Tuhfatul Mawlud bi Ahkam al-Mawlud. And in this book he talks about the ahkam connected to children when it comes to aqeedah, when it comes to fiqh. It's an extremely extensive book, and in here he's got a couple of chapters where he talks about the youth that has become misguided and how to protect your children from becoming misguided. And with this we learn something which is important, because it shows that the ulama benefit from one another. They complete one another. And it is not that they call to themselves or they call to following that particular scholar themselves. And it's unfortunate now, part of the religious identity that's being lost is some people that will say, just follow this masjid, just follow this madhab, don't listen to any other scholar, don't listen to any other book. Here we have some chapters written from Ibn al-Qayyim some 700-800 years ago, where he's talking about how to protect your youth from being misguided and becoming corrupted. And then the Shaykh, some 800 years later, writes something which is similar. This is because the ulama complete one another. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us scholars as a rahmah. So if you want, we can continue with this. What do you think? Should we continue or should we stop? Continue? Okay, so Ibn al-Qayyim in this book here, I will try and summarize because it is quite extensive. He says, Faslun, and in this chapter he's now going to talk about protecting them from bad manners. وَمِمَّا يَحْتَاجِ إِلَيْهِ الطِّفْلُ, what a child must have, غاية الاحتياج. He must have an objective. الاعتناء بأمر خلقه, that you protect the way that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created him. Because if you don't, the Shaykh goes on to say, Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah, فَإِنَّهُ يَنْشَأْ أَلَمَا, he will then continue living in a way that his parent or his guardian will instill in him while he is young. مَا عَوَّدَهُ الْمُرَبِّي فِي صِغَرِهِ. But if you don't, and this is what happens with a lot of youth, he says here, number one, they will become hasty, they will become angry, they will refuse to do any actions. وَالْعَجَلَ وَخِفَّ مَعَ هَوَى. They will be, again, hasty, not contemplating, rushing all the time. They will hide things and they will follow their desires. Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah is saying here, it is upon the murabbi, the person who is in charge of this child, to nurture the child at a young age, because if you don't, they will attain these characters, and he's chosen these characters, and you can probably see them in the youth today, and you can probably even see them in ourselves really. If we didn't receive this kind of tarbiyah and Islamic tarbiyah, some of these characteristics are probably found in ourselves. And this is what the Shaykh is saying here. If it's not sorted out when the child is young, they will become hasty, they will have short temper, lijaj, they will refuse to act, always arguing, why me? It's not my turn to do it. I didn't make the mess. Somebody else should do it. Ajala, they will be hasty. Khiffa, they will hide, they will deceive, they will use tricks. Ma'a hawa. And all of these negative characteristics added to the fact that the parent hasn't told this child from an early age to control your desires. You need to control yourself. فَيَسْعَبْ إِلَيْهِ فِي كِبْرِهِ تُلَافِهِ ذَلِكَ. And then when he gets old, you try and correct these things, it's going to be very difficult. And sometimes in certain cases, almost impossible. I mean, everything is possible if a person asks Allah, but it becomes very difficult for a person to change. وتسير هذه الأخلاق صفات وهيئات راسخة له. They will be embedded in him. ولهذا, and for this reason, تجد أكثر الناس منحرفة أخلاقهم. This is the reason why you find most people become deviated in their aqidah, deviated in their akhlaq. وذلك من قبل التربية. This is because of the fact of the upbringing that they had. وكذلك, and for this reason, يجب أن يتجنب الصبي. And for this reason, you should always nurture your children إذا أقل مجالس الله. When he becomes of an age to socialize with people, stop them from the majalis al-lahu, stop them from sitting in the gatherings of idleness and sin and batil and ghina والسماع الفحش والبدعة ومنطق السوء. Train your children, prevent your children from socializing in gatherings and having friends and companionship with those people who are going to call to sin, those people who are going to go to batil, which is falsehood in aqeedah, falsehood in actions, falsehood, any kind of falsehood. Ghina, music. In actual fact, Ibn Qayyim, who we're talking about here, he's got another book where he talks about music in with all of this different ahkam connected to music and some of the effects of it, and it's extremely extensive. And he says that music, not only does it breed nifaq and removes kufr from the heart, but it leads a person towards zina and following desires. So stop your children from music. وَالسَّمَاء الْفُحْشِ, listening to things which are foul and lewd and not pleasant. وَالْبِدْعَ, innovations into the religion. Be careful as to where they are taking their religion from. وَمَنْطِقُ السُّوءِ, and corrupt logic. فَإِنَّهُ إِذَا أَقَلَ بِالسَّمْعِ, if this now goes into his head at an early age, it becomes extremely difficult مفارقته في الكبر, for him then to leave it when he is older. فإنه متى سهله سبيل الكذب, if the parent doesn't teach the child that lying, والخيانة, and being treacherous is bad for him, and if it is normalized for him, then this person أفسد عليه سعادة الدنيا والآخرة. This person will have his dunya and his akhirah completely corrupted. وحرمه كل خير, and all forms of goodness will be prevented from him. The Shaykh then goes on, Ibn Qayyim rahimahullah, to talk about other characters. I think inshallah we'll continue with this next week because there's still a lot more that we need to cover. And inshallah next week we'll talk about what Ibn Qayyim rahimahullah has to say when it comes to the corrupt youth. And then inshallah the week after we can continue with Shaykh Muhammad's book, the problems faced by the youth today. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He grants us tawfiq and success, and that He instills in us iman and tawheed and purification for us and the future generations. Allahu a'lam wa sallallahu ala nabiyyina.